Hello students, good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Pallavi Gupta. Today I will be discussing on the qualification and disqualification of the membership under the Constitution of India. In fact, in this slide I will take up the qualifications specifically for the member of the Parliament and State Legislature under the Constitution of India. The topics which I will cover, that the general idea about the qualification and what articles are related to the constitution qualification. Specifically, it is saying that citizenship of India is the first qualification, and the second one is the oath or affirmation to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India. And the third one is that minimum qualification is under the Constitution of India. And slightly I will discuss the disqualification for membership under Article 102 and 191. So Article 84 and 173 of the Constitution of India says about there are some qualification for membership of the Parliament and the state legislature where there are some other disqualification or the qualification for the members under the law enacted by the Parliament. Those which are fundamental qualifications are prescribed in the Constitution itself, and these are fundamental and inalienable, means cannot be changed. So the law related to qualification of membership of Parliament and state legislature are mentioned in the Constitution of India as well as under the law enacted by the Parliament. Insofar as the membership of Parliament is concerned, these constitutional qualifications are laid down in Article 84. For membership of state legislature, the qualifications are separately laid down in Article 173, but all these are almost in identical language. Both of these articles in subclause C empower Parliament to prescribe under any law such other qualifications as may be considered necessary and appropriate time to time. Parliament has prescribed additional qualification in Representation of People Act 1951. The additional qualification which are mentioned in RP Act in fact is that candidates should be registered elector specifically. So regarding the constitutional qualification, number one is citizenship of India. Citizenship of India, that is a fundamental qualification under Article 1884A and Article 173A. Says that a person shall not be qualified to be chosen to fill a seat in Parliament or in state legislature unless he is a citizen of India. Citizenship of India has been prescribed by the constitution makers not only as an essential qualification for membership of Parliament or state legislature, but it has also been further specifically laid down in the Constitution that a person shall be disqualified for such membership if he is not a citizen of India at all times. That is Article 102, Subclause 1, Subclause D, and Article 191, Subclause 1, Subclause D. Citizenship of India is governed by the Citizenship of India is governed by the provisions both of the Constitution and of the statutory law, that is known as the Citizenship Act 1955. The Constitution makes detailed provision in Part 2 with respect to those persons who are regarded as citizens of India at the commencement of the Constitution on 26 January 1954. However, for those who are born on or after 26 January 1950, their citizenship status is governed by the provision of the Citizenship Act 1955. I will take up two cases related to citizenship of India, as that any question whether a person fulfill or not the qualification of being a citizen of India is to be decided with reference to the provision of the Constitution and the Citizenship Act 1955, as may be relevant and applicable to the person concerned. In the case of Bhagwati Prasad Dikshit versus Rajiv Gandhi, Supreme Court held that once a person is admitted or held to be a citizen of India, it shall be presumed that he has not ceased to be an Indian citizen unless there is a decision of the central government under Section 9, Subclause 2 of the Citizenship Act 1955 that he has acquired the citizenship of a foreign country. In the another case, that is Hari Shankar Jain versus Sonia Gandhi, the Supreme Court held that the validity of a certificate granting citizenship by registration under Section 5, Subclause 1, Subclause C of the Citizenship Act 1955 can be questioned in an election petition, and such question can be tried by the High Court hearing the election petition if the question is whether the candidate is qualified for or disqualified from contesting the election. So, citizenship shall be governed by the Constitution as well as Citizenship Act 1955, and to contest the election or to become a member of a parliament or state legislature, person has to be a citizen of India. Now, the next qualification the candidate must have, that is the oath or affirmation under the Constitution. Regarding the purpose of the oath or affirmation, means every candidate has to be qualified to contest an election to parliament or state legislature, has to make and describe either on oath in the name of God or a solemn affirmation in the form prescribed for the purpose in the Constitution under Article 84A and 173 Subclause A. The requirement of making and subscribing the oath or affirmation by a candidate is mandatory. The failure to make the oath or affirmation will render the nomination paper of the candidate liable to be rejection. At the time of the first election to the House of People from Sikkim in 1977, I would like to just quote illustration that in 1977, the first election in Sikkim, when it became a part of the Indian Union, the nomination paper of all the candidates except one were rejected as they had failed to make and subscribe the requisite oath or affirmation. The only candidate who had made the oath was declared elected unopposed. his uncontested election was held to be valid by the Sikkim High Court. So, oath and affirmation is very much required. Regarding the form of oath or affirmation, it says that it has to be made by a candidate for election to the Parliament in Form 3rd A in Schedule 3rd to the Constitution, and for election to a state legislature in Form 6A in that schedule. As already mentioned, that a candidate has to make either an oath in the name of God or a solemn affirmation. And I have taken a case, that is the Adlal versus Kashira in 1980. In the form of oath submitted by a candidate, the expression "say in the name of God" or solemnly affirm were both there, and one of the other alternative was not struck off. But the endorsement made on the form by the returning officer before whom the oath was taken made it clear that the candidate had made and subscribed the oath in the nature of God, and that the words solemnly affirm were not removed in the form due to the rush of the work, but these words were removed out in the certificate issued by him to the candidate immediately after he had taken the oath. The Supreme Court held that in such circumstances, the candidate had made and subscribed a valid oath at the time of filing his nomination paper. And regarding the person before whom oath or affirmation is to be made, the requisite oath or affirmation under the Constitution is to be made and subscribed by the candidate before some person authorized in that behalf by the Election Commission. The Election Commission has authorized several persons in this behalf. Principally, it is a returning officer or assistant returning officer of the constituency. In addition, all stipendiary magistrate of the first class, district judge, and the person belonging to the judicial service of a state are also so authorized. If for any reason a candidate cannot appear before any of the aforesaid person for making and subscribing the oath or affirmation, the following persons which I am going to tell, the following before these person oath or affirmation can be made, they are authorized by the Election Commission in this behalf. For example, number 1, where the candidate is confined in a prison, the superintendent of the person is the authorized person. Where the candidate is under preventive detention, the commandant of the detention camp is the authorized person. Where the candidate is confined to bed in a hospital or elsewhere, owing to illness or any other reason, the medical superintendent in the charge of the hospital or the medical practitioner attending on him is the authorized person. Where the candidate is out of India, the diplomatic or the consular representative of India in the country where the candidate happens to be, or any person authorized by such diplomatic or consular representative shall be authorized person. Where the candidate is for any other reason unable to appear or prevented from appearing before the returning officer concerned or any assistant returning officer, or as aforesaid any other person nominated by the Election Commission on application made to it in this behalf, are authorized person. In the case of M.G. Ramachandran, a question arose whether a person covered by any of the clause 1, 2, 5 or A to E must make and subscribe the oath before the person referred to in that very clause, or he could do so before any authorized person also, as already mentioned there. In this case, Mr. M.G. Ramachandran, the then Chief Minister of the state of Tamil Nadu, was undergoing treatment in the hospital in New York in the United States of America. He was a candidate for election to the Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly. The secretary of the political party to which he belonged made a request to the Election Commission to authorize a person before whom Shri Ramachandran could make and subscribe the oath or affirmation. The Election Commission issued a telex message to the Ambassador of India and the Consulate General of India in New York, instructing them that they may authorize one of the Indian medical practitioners attending on Shri Ramachandra to administer the oath or affirmation to him. But instead, Shri Ramachandran made and subscribed the affirmation before the consular agent of the Consular General of India, New York. It was contended that the affirmation was not valid because was not validly made before the person authorized by the Election Commission in this behalf, or he should have made such affirmation before the medical practitioner attending on him in terms of clause 2 or point number 2 that I have discussed above. And the Election Commission, as per the message given by the Election Commission, the Madras High Court did not agree with the contention and held that oath or affirmation could be made before any of the person authorized by the Election Commission, including the diplomatic or consular representative of India or any person authorized by such diplomatic or consular representative where a candidate happened to be out of India, and the various clauses number 1 to 5 or clause A to E were not mutually exclusive. So, oath or affirmation can be made before a person, any person who are authorized by the Election Commission. Now, when oath or affirmation is to be made, according to the decision of Supreme Court, the requisite oath or affirmation is to be made and subscribed by the candidate at any time after he has filed his nomination paper with the returning officer, but before the date fixed for the scrutiny of the nomination paper. Because there was no clarity, so Supreme Court has to give this clarity, and the candidate will be advised. So therefore, candidate will be advised to be careful to make and subscribe the oath or affirmation only after and not before their nomination paper has been presented to the returning officer, but well before the commencement of the date of the scrutiny of the nomination paper. They should be more particular about this aspect where they make and subscribe the oath or affirmation before a person other than the returning officer, and should satisfy themselves before doing so that the nomination paper has in fact been presented to the returning officer by that date and hour. Regarding oath or affirmation by a candidate who is contesting election from more than one election constituency. In such situation, where the candidate is contesting election from more than one parliamentary or assembly constituency at a general election to the House of People or as to the state legislature assembly, as the case may be, The making and subscribing of the requisite oath or affirmation in one such constituency is sufficient, and he need not make separate oath or affirmation in respect of each of the constituencies from where he is contesting election. Here it is to be noted that such a candidate will have to make and subscribe separate oath or affirmation if he is contesting election both to the House of People and a state legislative assembly at a simultaneously election. It is to be noted, because the oath or affirmation for election to the parliament and state legislature are made under separate provision of the constitution and in separate form prescribed for the purpose. Regarding the manner of making oath and affirmation, it requires that a candidate should make and subscribe the requisite oath or affirmation in a prescribed manner. The word make and subscribe in this article 84 subclause A and article 173 subclause A, indicates that the declaration of oath or affirmation shall be reduced to writing and signed in token of acceptance of the same. The word subscribe itself means to write under something or to give consent to something written by signing one's name underneath. The oath the election the oath regarding the oath or affirmation, the Election Commission has instructed that mere signing on the paper on which the form of oath or affirmation is written is not sufficient. The authorized person before whom the oath or affirmation is made and subscribed should ask the candidate to read it loud and then to sign and give the date on the paper on which it is written. If the candidate is illiterate or unable to read the form, the authorized person should read out the oath or affirmation and ask the candidate to repeat the same and therefore take his thumb impression on the form. The authorized person should endorse on the form that the oath or affirmation has been made and subscribed by the candidate on the date and hour, and hand over the original to the candidate after keeping a copy thereof for his record, as to enable the candidate to present the original form to the returning officer. The authorized person will also give a certificate to the candidate that he has made and subscribed the requisite oath or affirmation before him on that day at a particular hour. Although it will be the responsibility of the candidate himself to ensure that the original form of oath or affirmation is produced before the returning officer concerned before the time fixed for the scrutiny of the nomination paper, though here I would like to say that the Election Commission, although it is the duty of the candidate, but they instructed the returning officer that they should also remind the candidate to comply with the above essential requirement within the stipulated period where they have not done so at the time of the presentation of their nomination paper. Now that the Election Commission has prescribed a check memo which has to be filled by the returning officer at the time of the receipt of the nomination paper, such reminder can be given by the returning officer to the candidate through an appropriate entry provided in that check memo. A copy of it has to be furnished to the candidate by the returning officer. So this is all about oath and affirmation to be made by the candidate as a essential qualification. Regarding the next qualification, that a candidate should complete the minimum age which is prescribed. Regarding the minimum qualifying age, the Constitution has laid down that the person shall not be qualified to be chosen to fill a seat in the Council of State or in the Legislative Council of a state having such council, that is known as upper house of the parliament or state legislature, unless he is of 35 year of age. To be qualified to be chosen to fill a seat in a house of the people or in a state legislative assembly, that is known as a lower house of the parliament and a state legislature, the candidate must not be less than 25 year of the age, as per section 84 subclause B and article 84 subclause B and article 173 subclause B. Such age qualification should be fulfilled by the candidate on the date fixed for the scrutiny of the nomination as per section 36 subclause 2 subclause A of the RP Act 1951. If a candidate has not attained the minimum qualifying age on the date of the scrutiny of the nomination, his election shall be voted even if he has completed the qualifying age on the date of his election, as his nomination paper shall be deemed to have been improperly accepted. Regarding the failure to maintain minimum age in the nomination paper, every candidate must indicate his age in the column meant for the purpose in the nomination paper. Failure to do so may be a defect of substantial character, and the nomination paper may be liable to be rejected on this ground, as it was held in 1960 in the case of Brajendra Lal Gupta versus Jwala Prasad. At the time of general election in 1984 to the House of People, the nomination paper of the late Chaudhry Charan Singh, former Prime Minister of India in Sonipat parliamentary constituency, was rejected as he had failed to mention his age in his nomination paper, though no one could be in any manner of doubt that he fulfilled the age qualification. It is pertinent to add here that at the time of our referred decision, a candidate was not required to file any affidavit in support of his nomination paper. Now that an affidavit is filed by every candidate in Form 26 declaring his age, therein it would perhaps be advisable to treat such defect as a defect of non-substantial character in this change scenario. Regarding the proof of age, normally the age of a candidate as shown in the electoral roll may be accepted as his correct age by the returning officer, but such entry in the electoral roll or in elector's identity card is not conclusive, particularly where a doubt or the objection is raised that the candidate is below the minimum qualifying age. In such a case, the burden of proof lies initially on the objector to prove that the candidate is below age, and then it will shift on the candidate if some prima facie evidence is laid by the objector. Then it will be his duty to prove that he is not under age, as his date of birth is within his special knowledge, and the failure on his part to adduce satisfactory evidence may go against him in view of the provision of Section 106 of the Indian Evidence Act 1982. So normally, as a copy of the extract of school register certificate and a mark list of the secondary education board may be considered as a certificate, as a proof of age. As it was mentioned in the case of Biradmal Singhvi versus Anand Purohit. So the election commission has instructed that where the age of a candidate, yes, the election commission instructed that where the age of a candidate is not correctly shown in the electoral roll, he should mention his correct age in the nomination paper, as any such incorrect entry in the electoral roll will be overlooked by the returning officer under section 33 subclause 4 of the RP Act 1951 Act. As in a, we can say, I can take the example in a biennial election to the Council of State from Assam. Dr. Manmohan Singh wrongly indicated his age in his nomination paper as well as in supporting of affidavit. However, he subsequently filed another affidavit declaring his correct age, and that affidavit was taken on record by the returning officer and he accepted the nomination paper. So, this is all about the qualification of the membership for the parliament and state legislature under the constitution. The next topic for my lecture will be the constitutional disqualification for the membership of parliament and state legislature. Thank you for watching me and listening me. Bye bye.